Let's talk about React. The first and obvious question, do you know what React is? What's React?
Library.
It's a library. Is it a framework?
No.
No, it's not a framework. What's the difference between a library and a framework? It doesn't matter actually right now, right? But once you start working with senior people, they have very hard discussions about coding, and one of the discussions is whether React is a library or a framework, right? No, React is a library. It's a UI library. So React is a very useful tool created by Facebook some years ago to create apps easily. It's very good, right? Have you ever heard about Angular? Yes, Angular, of course, right? So Angular used to be the king of JavaScript some years ago, right? Angular was released in summer 2011, and it was a great step ahead at that time. But suddenly, Facebook released React, and React is arguably much better than Angular in many aspects. And that's why the majority of the community, hopefully no one from Angular is listening to that, the majority of the community, including myself, I was one of the first Angular developers in the world, actually. So the majority of the community migrated from Angular to React, right? Why? Because it's easier, it's simpler, it scales really well, right? You can do really good things with React, right? As we'll see in a minute, right? And how do we start creating apps with React? Well, I'm assuming everybody has Node.js installed. If you don't have Node.js installed, literally go to nodejs.org, /download. This is a desktop tool, so you can simply, download your package, Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever, right? And then that's it, right? Install it. If you are a Windows user, after you install Node, you will probably have to kill the terminal, right? We'll see what that means in a minute, right? But for now, please make sure you got Node installed. And if you are not 100% sure if you got Node installed, you can type node -v. And if you got Node installed, it will give you the version, right? That's the first prerequirement. The second one is to install Visual Studio Code. Do you know what Visual Studio Code is? It's a coding editor, right? This is one of the most famous coding editors today, right? This is a tool created by Microsoft relatively recently. It's free, it's open source, you got monthly updates, and for us as JavaScript developers, most importantly, even though some people doesn't trust us when we say that, this is written in JavaScript. This is one of the most important projects today written in JavaScript, and it's very sexy because it proves how many things you can do with modern JavaScript. Cool, so assuming you got both things installed already, Node.js and Visual Studio, the very, very first thing we're going to do is to install the app launcher. So Facebook released in 2014 a utility, very interesting utility, to create the skeleton of a modern app automatically. We'll see during this session why creating this skeleton is so beneficial, because there are some basic tasks that every single project today requires that fortunately, thanks to Create React App, that will be offered automatically without creating any single line of code. So how do we install the app launcher? What we need to do is we need to open a command line like this one, right? How do we open a command line? If you're a Mac user, you can open something called terminal, right? This is a command line tool. If you are a Windows user, you have several options. There is something called CMD. So if you search, you can type CM for Manchester, D for Denmark. That will open something similar. If you are a user of modern Windows, you can use PowerShell. So you can search something like, you can search PowerShell, and then we'll give you a similar command line tool. It doesn't matter actually, right? Either. As far as you get a black or blue background with text, white text in front of it, that's fine. That will work, right? So the first thing we are doing today is to install the engine to create apps with React easily. How do we install the engine? What we need to do is to type npm and then install or I, which is a nice shorthand, up to you, install, and then the name of the package that we want to install in our system. The name of the package is create dash react dash app. And very important, after that, just type dash G. You know what dash G means? Global, that's correct, that's correct. Thanks to that flag at the end of the line, you can put it before create React app, doesn't matter. As far as you put that dash G flag, that means that we'll be able to create apps from anywhere in our system. So this is very convenient, very flexible way to create apps from scratch. So then, if you type enter, two things may happen. If you're a Windows user, that will probably work. If you're a Mac user, that will probably fail. You may get an error like that, right? This is because we are trying to install a new app from the command line, and Apple doesn't like this kind of tricks, right? So to get rid of the problem, you can put the line back, so you can type it again, or if you type up, you press up arrow in your keyboard, then you can go left, so you don't need to type everything again. Please type sudo, sudo, in front of the npm command. sudo and then npm install blah, 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 right? If we do that, then now it will ask the system password, because we are running the command as an administrator, you see? Type the password. Please note that the password is not going to be typed, it's not going to get displayed, but it's actually entered correctly. So once you type the password, you see, eventually we'll get our package installed. So, has everybody installed the Create React App package?
Hey, Ricardo.
Yes?
Is it normal that we have a black screen and we don't see your screen?
You don't see the screen? Are you sure you don't see the screen?
Yeah, I just see your name and yeah, black screen.
Well, there is a black screen indeed with white text in front of it, right?
No? I don't have access to your
okay,
screen.
Okay, no problem at all. Let me present the screen again. Let's see if that helps. So I'm... Okay, perfect. Yes, that's fine. Let me know if it happens again. As I said, sometimes the streaming, doesn't work perfectly, right? Cool, awesome. So we got the Create React App package installed, and now what we are going to do is we're going to create our very first app with React. So technically speaking, we haven't created any app yet. We have just installed the engine to bootstrap apps easily. So how do we create our very first app? Well, you need to type the following: create dash react dash app, and then space, and then the name of your app. The name of your app means that we are going to create a new folder in your system containing all the files you need to create an app. So please type something meaningful. We are going to create something, a random app. We're going to, I didn't mention that before, it's not that relevant. So we're going to create an app to list a bunch of heroes from Marvel and DC, right? This is what I'm going to do, right? Feel free to create something about a different topic, right? That's up to you. I'm just going to follow that topic. Why? Because we'll learn how to add images, how to navigate, how to create React components, how to communicate components. So we'll learn the basics of React, right? So whatever you type here, please make sure it's something that makes sense. So for example, I'm going to type Heroes App. It will create a new folder in my system called Heroes App, right? Press enter, and then this is very interesting. Look at the messages, guys. Installing React, React DOM, React scripts. So few things are going on, right? We get some things installed. This is what now Facebook is doing to facilitate the process of creating a new app from scratch using React. Without this process, of course, we can still create apps with React, but the setup will be way more complicated. We may spend days or even weeks setting up everything, right? With this process, within a couple of minutes, we are ready to go.
Excuse me, I tried that. It said that I'm running Node 7 and it needs to go there.
Right, correct.
Which version of Node do you have?
So I have Node 9, right? Probably you need to make sure that your version of Node is relatively recent. If you have an old version of Node, you can easily upgrade it. I don't remember the command on top of my head, but this is something like npm install npm, something like that. You can search on Google. You search on Google how to upgrade Node.
Apparently sudo n stable.
Right. Clean the. You don't have to clean the cache. You can do that if you want. Yes, fine. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Guys, do we have the React app installed? Yes. That's the very first thing, right? If we are lost here, it doesn't look good, right? So please make sure that that we can install the React app. Any question? No? All good? Yes?
Yeah, it's Caroline. Sorry to interrupt. My terminal is asking me to use Yarn, so...
No, you don't have to. You don't need to use Yarn. You can use npm. No.
Okay.
So to install, remember to install the Create React App engine. You can type, if you have a Mac, if you're a Mac user, sudo npm. If you're a Windows user, literally npm, right? And then after that, Create React App, right? You don't need to use Yarn. Yarn is a different package manager, which we can use, of course, but we don't have to.
Okay, cool. I'll use npm then.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So, assuming that you got your Heroes app, or however you call the amazing project already created, the next step is to open the project with Visual Studio. Remember, Visual Studio Code, please don't confuse with classic Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a very old tool, but now you got Visual Studio or VS Code, right? Which is a new version of Visual Studio, lightweight, very fast, very reliable, and all these things, right? So please open Visual Studio Code, and hopefully you'll get something like that. Maybe if you've used Visual Studio Code before, you'll have some projects already open, right? That doesn't matter. The important thing now is to open the project that we literally just created 2 minutes ago. How do we open the project that we created 2 minutes ago? Easy. Go to the top, File, on the menu, and then click Open, right? If you have that view, you can click Open Folder. That's the same thing, actually. So File, Open, and now that's the tricky part. We need to find where our Heroes app project is created in our system. By default, unless you did something tricky before the start of the session, the Heroes app project will be available in your home directory. If you are a Mac user, you can click in your home directory, and then you will see the folder we created a minute ago. So please make sure you select the folder. You don't need to double click, just select it. And once you select the folder, click Open. If you are a Windows user, by default, your project will be in a folder like C/users/ your username.
Actually, if you use %user, you'll probably get it.
If you use what?
If you use %user %.
User person, yeah, of course, yeah, definitely. So there are different shortcuts. I'm just typing the full path in case you get lost, right? And then inside of your home directory, you'll have Heroes app. Right? So, please open the project, open the folder. Right? And then you'll get something like that, more or less. Some files, some file structure on the left-hand side, some random code on the right-hand side. Is everybody here? Visual Studio Code? Yes? Cool. Okay, let's continue. If we are all here, now the next step is to start the server. Every web application runs in a server, right? How do we start the web server? It's very easy. The only thing we need to do is go to the terminal. We can reuse any other terminal. We can actually reuse the one we used before, but my personal suggestion is to use the integrated terminal. Why? Very simple. Because if you want to reuse the former terminal, we'll have to keep switching between one window and the other, which is not convenient. One of the things we learned here in the Codiri Bootcamp is productivity. We should be as much productive as possible. So talking about productivity, there is nothing more productive than having all the relevant tabs and windows available at the same place, right? So I hope everybody has a terminal at the bottom. If you don't see any terminal at the bottom of your screen, you can enable that view easily, going to View on the menu, and then Terminal. In some cases, you'll have Terminal. If you have an older version of VS Code, it will say Integrated Terminal. It doesn't matter, right? So if it's open and you click here, it will close. And if it's closed and you click again, it will open, right? Rocket science. All right. Is everyone in this view here at the bottom with the terminal? Again, black background, white text, right? So now, how do we start the server? This is that's, maybe I'm a bit optimistic here, but that's the only command that you'll have to run every day in the terminal. I'm a bit optimistic here, but that's at least it's the most important one. The way to start the server is simply typing npm np n for network, p, m for Manchester, space, start. Just type that and press enter, of course. And then don't do anything, don't touch anything. Just see what happens. Automatically, the Create React App engine will hopefully open a new tab in your default browser, and eventually, after some seconds, the first time it may take 30, 45 seconds, depending on your hardware, you'll get that. The spinning React logo. Yes? Any issue? No? Cool. So what is that? That's the welcome page of our React application. We are going to change it in a minute, of course. But this is the default one, right? Everyone should get a very similar screen. And that's very interesting because what Facebook is offering us is a sample page, right? At least we got something. I prefer that than a blank page, right? Because at least now I have an icon, I have some text, I have a link. Okay, so that will help me to get familiar with the world of React. So then, look at the message. Edit source / app.js and save to reload. What that means? So Facebook is inviting us to go to Visual Studio and then find on the left-hand side a file called app.js. So please open that file. And once you open that file, you may notice, if you have some basic experience with HTML, CSS, and all these kind of web technologies, that what you get here is essentially the source code that generates the welcome screen. Welcome screen, source code. Source code, welcome screen. How do we know that? How do we know that? Well, pay attention to the details. You see the message at the bottom, right? Edit source app and save to reload. If we go to Visual Studio, we got the same message on line number 12. Edit source app and save to reload. Right? Of course, now if we change that line and we save the file, the browser will automatically take the changes. So I'm going to change the line number 12, and I'm going to display a message, welcome to the Heroes app. Something like that, right? If I go to the browser, that seems trivial, but there is a lot of engineering under the scenes. Literally, after saving the change, the browser automatically refreshed. I didn't even have to press F5 or the refresh button in the browser, right? During my 18 years of career using JavaScript, I had to press that button hundreds of thousands of times, probably, not anymore, right? So this is one of the things that Facebook considers relevant in modern software development, and I believe they are right. They are right, because if every time I change something, why do you change something? Because you want to test something on the browser. Why do I need to press the refresh browser? Do it for me, right? We're in 2019. Thank you. This is happening finally, right? Right. So again, every time you do a change, after saving the file, the browser will, it's immediate, it's super fast, look. Very, very fast, right? Actually, you will probably have to save the file manually, pressing Ctrl S if you're a Windows user, pressing Command S if you're a Mac user, going to files, you know, all this boring journey, right? One of the things we learned here, and actually there is a very nice workshop in our YouTube channel, is about productivity. I don't have to save any file anymore. I promise. I never save the files. As soon as I stop typing, you see at the bottom, files got saved automatically. It goes beyond the scope of this session to explain how to do it. But it's a very convenient improvement task that we should do at some point in our life, right? Cool. So even though at the moment, if you are in this point, I think we should be quite optimistic that we'll be able to start building a nice application. To me, I still feel a bit strange, the fact that I need to go, you know, this kind of ping pong game, right? We love ping pong, but, you know, we don't like to mix it with coding, right? So that's a bit weird, right? So how do we improve productivity? That may not work for everybody, but from my personal experience, and the bigger your screen is, the better. So what I do is I tend to have both Visual Studio and Google Chrome side by side. That massively helps to create new functionalities, because I don't need to switch anymore, because I'll have anything I need at the same time visible on the screen. How do we do that? If you are a Windows user, you can simply snap a window to the left, Visual Studio on the left and the browser on the right, or vice versa, whatever works better for you. If you are a Mac user, and unless you have a very old version of Mac, you can pretty much achieve the same thing, holding the maximize, holding the green button, right? And then you can snap it on the left or on the right. Please make sure the window you want to snap is not maximized, right? If it's maximized, yes, undo. So have the window floating around the screen, and then snap it on the left, and then that's very nice, right? Once you snap it on the left, Mac is asking you, okay, which one goes on the right? I'll select Google Chrome. Right? Why this is convenient? Well, because look at the difference. So now, I can change the message. That's it. I don't need to keep switching between, you know, active views, right? And I'll tell you another hint. We tend to do mobile-first development. You know what mobile-first development is? You focus on mobile, and then you do the necessary changes to adapt it for desktop, right? So Chrome comes with a very nice DevTools system that will help us to create apps. So how do we open DevTools? You can do right-click anywhere in the in the Chrome view, anywhere, do right-click, and then you will notice something called Inspect at the bottom. when you click inspect, then it will open DevTools on the right-hand side. I know this is not absolutely ideal because I don't have too much space. Also, the projector doesn't help, right? But if you have a decent screen, this is lovely. This is very good, right? This is a very good way to create responsive apps. Because now, look, with Google Chrome, if you click on this button, you see, we can simulate how our app looks in different mobile devices. Galaxy, iPhones, you see, different screen sizes. So this is very good for prototyping, to have a very first impression about how your app will look like depending on the device, right? Cool. So I will enable, I don't know, just Galaxy because of no particular reason. Feel free to change that, right? So then I have, this is my favorite layout. I have my source code on the left. In the middle, I have my resulting application. And on the right-hand side, I have DevTools. So DevTools is an amazing wall. We can do an entire workshop explaining how to use DevTools. That goes beyond the scope of this session, right? But at some point, we may do some tricks with DevTools. Is everybody here? Right? Cool. So before start working, before I start creating our Heroes app, I would like to tidy up, right? So at the moment, we got some colors, some icons, which are good, but you know, to me, this is noise. I want to start already, because I know already it works. I know that I can do changes and the browser reflects the changes, but now I want to tidy up. I don't want to have any React logo on my app, right? It doesn't make any sense. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some lines on the JavaScript. I'm going to remove from line number 9 to line number 22, including these two, from 9 to 22. Right? And now, you see, after that change, you'll get a white sheet, right? So you get nothing, because we've cleared everything, right? Because we've cleared everything, now we can start creating our app. So, first of all, let's put the title. Welcome to the Heroes app. Oops. Right? So, after doing the change, you will probably see the title on top of your app, right? It's a bit small at the moment, I believe. So do you know how to increase the font size of the text in HTML? H1, I like that. H1, this is not about React, this is just basic HTML, right? If you surround your title with H1, looks a bit nicer, right? If instead of H1 you put H2, text will be a bit smaller. If you put H3, even smaller, and so on, right? So find your creative side. Just do whatever you want here. Cool. So as I mentioned before, I'll be creating a Heroes app. I'm going to display on this view, this will be my homepage, right? So I'm going to create a couple of logos, the DC Comics logo and the Marvel logo. Eventually, I will click on one of them and I'll be redirected to a details page where I'll get the list of heroes. Superman, Wonder Woman, you know all these things probably better than me. So, first thing, let's learn how to add images with React. The process is pretty simple, but we need to look after a couple of details. First of all, let's find an image. I'm going to find the DC Comics logo. So I'll go to Google and I'll simply type DC Comics logo. Right? And I'll go to Google Images and I'll just find one logo that I like. For example, the first one. Right? Look at the size of the logo. That will be important in a minute. So once you have a nice logo, it's not the goal of this session to do a pixel perfect app, right? So don't worry if it doesn't look, like an Apple product. So once you have the image, let's download it. And this is important. Where do we download the image? We should download the image inside of our project. Inside of our project. So we save the image, and now we need to find again where our project is. Remember, it will probably be in your home directory, right? And then, once you are in your home directory, this is very important. Please make sure that all your files are inside of the src folder. If you drop any file outside of the src folder, React may complain. So please download the image inside of the src folder. I will also suggest you to probably rename the image to something easier to remember. So I'm just going to call the image dc-comics.png. So once you download the image, it will show on the left-hand side, right? You will have the image there. Actually, you can even click on it, and Visual Studio will display the image that we literally just downloaded. Yes, let them know, sorry, they will help you in a minute. Right, so you managed to download the image? Easy, right? So now, because we downloaded the image, how do we display the image on the screen? Yes, that's the second part. There are two parts. We need to do two things to display the image. This is the way modern JavaScript works. Starting from ES6, which is the version that was released in 2015 of JavaScript, so that's relatively recent. Now we can import things into our components. So we'll do two things. First of all, we'll import the image, and then, because we already imported it, we'll display it. So how do we import the image? It's very easy. On top of the file, anywhere on top of the file, we type import, and then the name of the variable that will host the image. We can put whatever we want here. Please type something meaningful. For example, I'll call the image DC Comics logo, right? And then the next important thing is, okay, that's the image, but where the image is, we need to type from and then the location of the image. So to type the location of the image, we can use, if you have been working with a terminal a bit, probably you've seen that we can put dot slash. If we type dot slash, we are telling the image is on the same folder than app.js. So both files are on the same directory. So now we can type the name of the file, dc-comics.png. That's the first thing. We import the image, and then the image is available on that variable. But look, the image is not rendered yet. Why not? We have what? Correct, that's correct. Remember, to add an image, we need two steps. First, we import it, but then we need to display it. How does React know if we want to display the image here, there, on top? React doesn't know. We need to explicitly tell, please display the image after the title, for example. So, as someone suggested before, we can add an img tag. And then, with img, we can tell where the image is. We can type src, stands for source, equals. And then this is important. We need curly brackets, because we are going to refer to a variable and then the name of the variable. I call it DC Comics logo. Once you've done that, you need to close the tag, type in slash and the greater than symbol. As soon as you do that, you will see something probably quite horrible, but at least now our image should be displayed, right? So that's good, right? So did everyone manage to display an image with React? Yes? Easy, right? Before going any further, I would like to explain something. Up until now, we have been ignoring the console. But if we pay attention, we got some warnings. Probably you'll get some warnings too. It's a good exercise to pay attention to the console because these warnings may be masking an actual problem, right? So if you have any warning, of course, if you have any error in the console, please let's try to solve the error before going any further. In my particular case, I have two warnings. The first one means line number 2. Look, today the messages are very useful and convenient. Some years ago, it was a pain in the ass to debug these kind of things because we got generic errors and it was very hard to identify where the problem was. But now, look, it's very easy. It's telling me the file where the error is, app.js, and the line number 2, right? So I don't know what's going on, but I know there is something wrong on line number 2. So what's the problem? Logo is defined but never used. So that line number 2 that you may still have, that corresponds to the original version, to the first version of the Create React app. You remember the spinning logo in the middle of the screen, right? So that's inherited from the previous version of the app. We don't need that anymore. We don't want to display the React logo. So simply get rid of it, right? And now the warning is gone. However, we still have probably another warning. Look at the warning. Image elements must have an alt property. So do you know what the alt property is? Correct.
Also for blind people.
Correct. Yes. So the main reason why React is asking us to add an alt attribute is because of the impaired people. So, for example, blind people, they, of course, they have internet and they use the web, right? But they have special web browsers. So they have some kind of web browsers that they are able to read the screen. So even if they cannot see the screen, they can hear, they can listen, right? So that's why the alt attribute is very convenient, because if here we put a meaningful text like DC Comics logo, the screen reader will tell the user, hey, there is an image here, which is the DC Comics logo. That will help the users of these kind of special browsers to understand what's going on in our app, right? So please remember to add an alt attribute in all your images, right? Any question? No? Cool. Now the image is there, but it looks horrible, right? We are not going to be hired as senior designers anywhere, right, with this horrible image, right? So this is normal. Generally speaking, if you add an image to the screen, by default, images will get as big as possible, right? There is a way to control the size of the images with CSS. So if you open the navigation panel on the left-hand side, you will see we have a file called app.css. So please open that file. That file will have lots of things on it already. To be honest, we don't care about these things, because again, this is about the spinning logo, legacy things. So we don't care about any single line here. So feel free to remove everything. After removing everything, now we can customize how our images will look like. So do you know how to change the styling of an image in CSS? How we do that?
Image size.
No, but first of all, how do we put the selector?
Class.
Image, img. Can we do that? Correct. If we do that, we'll be changing the behavior of every single image in our app, which for now is okay. We'll see in the future if that's okay or not. But for now, it's okay. One of the good things about Agile, we do Agile here in the bootcamp, is we are not looking for perfection on the first iteration. We try something, and if it helps to have something better than we had before, then let's leave it, right? We'll do several iterations towards seeking perfection. So now, what do we need to put here? Well, we need to tell the browser that the images will never go beyond the viewport. In other words, the images will be up to 100% width. So to do that, we can type max width 100%. So it's a big change. If you type max width 100%, that means that if we have a very small image, it will respect its size. But if the image goes beyond 100% of the visible space, no. Then, keep it up to the boundaries of the user's screen. So now, obviously, this is better because I can see the picture, right? So it's more usable. Any question? No? Okay, cool. So let's continue. Because we have our image here, I would like to add a new image underneath for Marble. And this is literally the same process we've done so far. So coding is about repeating the same thing again, and again, right? So at this stage, you will tell me how to display the Marble logo at the moment. I'm going to look for the logo, and you'll tell me how to display it. Again, we go to Google, we search Marble logo, Marble logo, images. It will give me lots of images. You can pick any of these, right? Just for usability purposes, I'm going to find an image that has the same size as the DC Comics image. The size of my DC Comic image was 1200 by 1200. Do you know in Google how to search images with a specific size? No? Cool. You can go to Tools, right, in Google Images, and then look at the Size tab at the bottom. You can search images of a particular size. So I can search, for example, images that are exactly 1200 by 1200. Right? Look, you see? So now the images are literally the size I want. So let's pick the first one. Again, save image as. And now the question is, where do I need to drop the image? Can I leave it in the home directory, Heroes app? No? Where do I need to drop it? Correct. Remember, every time you add a new file to your project, drop it in the src folder, right? And then save. So once you download the image, it will be available on the left-hand side of the screen, right? If you forgot to rename the image, for example, I hate that name, it's very long, right? I don't want to type that very long name. We can rename images, of course, with Visual Studio. You can do right-click, rename, or you can simply type enter and rename it. So, how do we display the Marble image? You'll tell me the steps. Import. What's the name of the variable? It's a Marvel logo, right? Marvel logo. From the location of the image, right? So the image is on the same folder, and the name of my image is marvel.webp. And then the image is clearly not visible yet. So what else do we need to do? Image tag, correct. img src equals Marvel logo, alt equals Marvel logo. And it works. You see? Easy. So now we got both logos displayed on the screen. Question for you guys. Can I rename Marvel logo with Brexit? It works, right? So that's important. That's an important principle in modern JavaScript. The name of the variable is not relevant, technically speaking, right? So we can put whatever name we want here, right? The important thing is that, the right-hand side, we need to identify where the image is. Once we find the image, it will be saved in that variable. The name is not important. Well, of course it's important from a semantics point of view, right? Because we'll be working as part of a team. So we should be very descriptive, explaining to our colleagues what are we trying to do, right? So even though Brexit is a valid name, even though Donald Trump is a valid name, we shouldn't do these kind of things, right? We should create meaningful variable names like Marvel logo, right? Out of curiosity, do you know what's the technical way? This is not about JavaScript. This is about, software culture. Do you know what's the technical way to describe this kind of syntax where we start with a lowercase and then if we have another word, we capitalize it? Camel case. That's correct. That's correct. So this is called, let me see if I can display. So when we have that Marvel logo, this is camel case, right? What happens if we have an underscore? Ignore the errors for now. Just focus on that variable name. What's the name of that syntax pattern? No one? So this is snake case. Why snake case? It's like a snake, right? It goes up and down, right? And what if we, instead of an underscore, we have a hyphen, which is not valid in JavaScript as a variable name, as you can see because of all the red lines. But what's the name of this pattern, of this syntax? Which one? No one? So that is called, surprisingly, kebab case. Why kebab case? Because it simulates the blade, right, that goes through the meat, right? It feels a bit weird, but I'm not joking, that's true. This is called kebab case, right? Especially if you work with young developers, they will call it kebab case, right? That's accepted today. The classic way, probably even before kebab even existed or even it was popular, so that was called Lisp case. Because Lisp was the first programming language that introduced this kind of syntax. But today, if I ask my graduates to use Lisp case, I will feel very weird, very old-fashioned, right? So yes, correct. Yes, it is, but it's what it is, right? So yes, trying to feel a bit younger, I will tell them to use kebab case or kebab. I never know what's the correct one. Anyway, and what happened if instead of a dash, we have a capital on the left? You see, it's like, you said before camel. This is a camel, right? Because it's like a camel, you see, more or less. But what if we start with capital? What's the name of this syntax? Yes, but there's a way to describe that. No one? Which one?
Hungarian.
Hungarian. I never heard that, to be honest. I mean,
in because in Hungarian there's a prefix for the site.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely Windows kernel mode, isn't it?
So in programming world, the classic way to call that is Pascal. Pascal case. Because again, Pascal was the very first programming language to popularize, right? Or to introduce in a popular way this syntax, right? Right, so that's it, guys. I'm not going to keep talking about, you know, all things. So we got the two images, right? Now, before giving the control to Poppy, I would like to introduce which is probably the most important principle in React, which is the component. You can figure out that eventually our app will grow, we'll add new functionalities, buttons, videos, you know, lots of things, right? So this file will grow a lot. Because of that, what React proposes is to split our logic into smaller components, right? You know, when you go on holiday, you go to Ryanair, you go to EasyJet, VA, any of these websites, generally speaking, you select your travel time, right? When do you want to go out and when do you want to get back, right, to London? So essentially, when you click on the input, you get a calendar, right? And when you click on the other input, you get another calendar. So these are components. This is a piece of functionality that someone created, and now we can reuse again, again, and again. So React is awesome handling components. And that's the main reason why React destroyed Angular as the king of the UI libraries / frameworks. So how do we create a component? There are several ways to create components. Actually, literally today, we publish a couple of videos on YouTube explaining how to create components, but I'll create a very basic component. Essentially, a component in JavaScript is a function. So you can type function and then the name of the component. Because this will be my home page somehow, I will type home with capital H. And then because that's a function, I will open parentheses. And then I will open curly brackets. So what that means? Now here I can type some HTML. For example, if I type hello Meetup members, right? If I type that, now I can invoke that component as many times as I want. How do we do that? Well, anywhere in my main component, look at the way I invoke the home component. This is an HTML tag, so I can put the tag symbol, and then I can do that. You see how simple this is? So that will essentially display our message on the screen. If I copy and paste that tag several times, 3 times, message gets displayed 3 times. Right? 4, 5, whatever, right? So this is the most fundamental component you can create with React. A function that returns a very simplistic piece of HTML. And of course, you can, as you already know, change the content of the template. So for example, next week will be probably 3,000 members on Meetup. So if you change that, then the browser will reflect the changes, right? Cool. We don't want to display that. However, we want to encapsulate both images into our component. So what do we need to do? Let me get rid of the references to the home component. And now let's have a parent div surrounding everything. And inside of that div, let's just simply drop both images. Question: where are the images? Why the images are not displayed anymore? Correct. That's correct. We have created a home component, but we are not displaying the home component. So essentially, as you already know, we need to add the home tag somewhere in our HTML, and then the component gets executed immediately, which is pretty convenient, right? Can I duplicate the home component? Can I put it again underneath? Will it work? Why not, right? I mean, if I do that, how many images will it display now? 4, correct. DC Marvel, DC Marvel. That doesn't make any sense. But hey, technically speaking, it's possible, right? Cool. So that's pretty much it regarding the first part of the workshop. Now, Poppy will explain how to enable navigation. Because essentially what we want to do is we want to click on the DC Comic image and we want to drill down to navigate to a new page, right?
Yes. Thank you. Is the mouse?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh. Right. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, so one of the brilliant things about JavaScript is that we can add behavior and functionality to our web pages. So at the moment, our web page, it looks nice, we've got images up, we've got our title, but we can't go anywhere else. So I'm going to show you how to navigate via the router. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to install via the terminal the router, the React router. So I'm going to do this by opening up a new terminal. And I'm going to enter the npm code. So npm install dash dash save React router DOM, and once you have installed that, just click enter. And just while this loads up, one thing to consider is to make sure you keep an eye on your terminal of whether the React page is still functioning. Because sometimes the terminal connection does get lost. So it's something to pay attention to while you are using this feature. Okay, so once we have installed the React router, we need to import it in the same way as we did, in a similar way as we did with the images and with the React. So following this routine, following this logic, we'll start off with the import statement. Then we will declare the name of the router. And this name is rather long. It's browser router. So browser router, all one word. Now, because it's quite long, we're going to say, give it another name. So we're going to say it's known as, so remember to put in as, router. And this is from and I see what my issue is. As you can see, it's good to pay attention to your code because I've got an issue already. So make sure you encapsulate your code with the curly braces and add in the spaces. From the as router. There we go.
Should those braces be curly or just regular braces?
Yeah, sorry. Curly braces. Well noticed. Thank you very much. There we go. Much better. Okay. And then to React router DOM. And here we go.
How
Yes.
How do we install the package while maintaining the app running the server?
Okay, so as you have noticed at the moment, it isn't maintained, so I need to check my terminal and check that it is. Ricardo, is it possible to have check that it is all up and running?
Oh,
So
we've got 2 terminals.
Yes.
Yes.
So you can add as many terminals as you want. So you've noticed there is a plus button here. So you can add multiple apps. That's a good point, because if after you run npm start, that terminal is not available anymore because the server is running, right? So of course we can be a bit aggressive, we can kill the server, do our stuff, start it again, or we can be gentle and open a new terminal and type our stuff here.
so I think it could be that it's
So, because one thing to
And-
notice, because React Router DOM is a library that we've installed, we shouldn't put the /, right?
yes.
So that's a global dependency, right? And then, so after doing that,
Brilliant.
that should work.
Okay, wonderful. So now we've imported our React router, we need to insert it into our app. So where we're going to insert it is below the return statement. We're going to enter the element router and have the closing statement at the bottom. So that it encapsulates the divs within it. So they're the child divs of the router element. Now, one thing to notice about the router, at the moment we've got one child div. But what happens when we add a second one? So if I say div hello meetup, hello everyone in HTML. It fails to compile. And this is partly because you can only have one child element, one child of the element. Okay, so in addition to this, we also need to add a route. And where we add this is within the original statement here. So it's next door to, with including a comma, the router. So we type in route. And I want to ensure that I continue to format my document as I go along so that the readability of the document is well maintained. Okay, so I'm just going to deal with my compiling. Okay, so I'm just going to check the connection of my terminal again.
And that's a classic problem. In 2019, we are sometimes having still classic issues that because of every reason are not resolved yet. So look what happened now. Now the server is not running. So it looks like the server died. That may happen to you as well. If that ever happened, the natural thing to do is go to our terminal, the first one, and on the drop down, yes, click there, first one,
Okay.
it died. That happens from time to time. Why? It happens, right? So if your server dies, we need to restart it again. Type in npm start. You remember npm start? Type it again, and then automatically the server should run in a minute again.
Okay, lovely. So we've got our page up again. So just make sure you continue to pay attention to your terminals. So now that we've installed the route, which will help us enable navigation in our page, we need to install the route. So to do this, I am going to type in the element name within the parent div of class name, route. Next, I will type in path. And this will help with the navigation. Now, because this is our home page, I will put a /. And this is what the user will write into the search bar to find the page. Next, I will specify the component. And this is what Ricardo defined earlier. And we need to make sure that the component name matches to the one that you specify within the HTML. So that was home. And then finally enclose it in the closing tags, making sure we have one. So once we've done that, we've started to enable the route. We need to say where we're going to route to, where we're going to navigate to. In this case, we are going to navigate to our DC Comics page, our DC Comics logo page. And one thing to consider when defining the name of your path is the case. Now, when defining a website, we use kebab case. So I will say DC Comics and the component will be DC Comics. Now, as you see, well, I will have an error. This will not compile because DC Comics hasn't been defined yet. So that means we need to add another component. So following and making sure I'm keeping my code readable and neat, I'm going to format again. Perfect. And then underneath our original component, I'm going to define a second component. So once again, using the same pattern of defining a function, specified a function keyword, using capital letters for my DC Comics page, making sure it's the same one that I've specified before. Okay. And including my return statement. And I want to make sure it's nicely spaced so that the code looks really neat and elegant. And on that note, I will continue to format my document. Now I need to consider what I'm going to put in the route. So this will be our message. So I'm going to use a heading. I'm thinking a larger heading. So what can anyone remember the tag size? The tag H1, brilliant. I'm going to surround my code with H1 tags. So it's nice and big. So welcome to our page. Okay, and I'm also going to enclose it in a parent div as well. Okay. So once I've found the solutions to my errors, we will proceed. So, if I refresh the page now, and restart it, we should see some text. I'm just going to make sure that it has compiled successfully. I can see it at the top.
You're still on the home page, right?
Yes, let me just, so now we're going to navigate. We're going to see the navigation. So I've just completed the component for the DC comics. So I'll just pass it on using the code that I specified originally in my path. So I'll enter this into my search. Next.
I know what's going on. Sometimes,
Okay.
that may happen to you as well, because of
you.
a reason, Chrome doesn't want to change the URL. So if I type DC Comics, it doesn't work, right? This is an amazing thing of Chrome, modern Chrome, that doesn't work as expected. So the best way to solve it is either you restart Chrome or you go to an incognito window, right? It's not ideal. It's definitely not ideal, but I think that will be the easiest way to do. So you can, sorry, let's see if that works. Yeah, I need to restart Chrome. Should work.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Thank you. No, it's not the. It doesn't have the text because it should have the welcome to our DC.
Yeah.
Welcome to our page.
This, yeah, it's there. It's
Okay,
both.
brilliant.
You need the exact thing. Right?
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so now that we've restarted the page, we can see that our changes have rendered on the page, but it's still there with the pictures. As you could see before, I was trying to find my H1 text between the pictures. It's difficult. So the way to solve this problem is by going back to the route element and inserting an attribute. And that is the word exact in front of each of your paths. Okay. And if we type in the home page, we will see the images in the Welcome to the Heroes app. Okay, so, but there's a problem. If the user wants to navigate between different pages, it's not very easy for them. Every time they want to move, they've got to type into the bar DC Comics, which takes time. So, as a solution, we're going to link the images to the page which we're routing to, which we're navigating to. The way we do this is we return to our imports, back to where we declared the router, and we will include the keyword link. Next, we will include the element link as a parent div to our image tags. So I'm going to surround each of our image tags. Okay, I'll just surround one. And reformat the document. We now need to specify where exactly we're going to navigate to. So to do this, I will just type in the keyword, the word, reserved word to. And where we're going to navigate to. So this will be DC Comics. Copy and click into it. Okay. And now we're going to test this. So if I hover my mouse over the DC Comics image, you can see that I've got the option to click it. I click on it and it navigates to our follow-up page. Okay, thank you very much. I'll move back to Ricardo.
Cheers. Guys, last part of the workshop. Let's do something fun. Thank you, Poppy.
Thank you.
So I would like to show you how to communicate components. That will take maybe 10-15 minutes and we'll be done. So we're going to do something nice. So Poppy already prepared the details page, right? So in here, we want to display a list of heroes. So let's do something. Let's go to Google, let's find some heroes of DC Comics, and let's display them here, right? So, for example, DC Comic heroes. We got Superman, is that correct? Is Marvel? No.
Yeah.
Superman, right? Let's find an image of Superman. That one. Again, same process. We know how to add images, right? Save image as, I'll save it into my source folder, Superman. And then let's put Batman. Same thing. Save image as Batman. And finally, we got Wonder Woman, right? Let's download the image for Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, right? So now, obviously, in our DC Comics page, we can import and display these superheroes that we literally just downloaded, right? So do you remember what we need to do to display an image? Import it, correct. So let's do that. Import Superman from superman.png, correct? So what's the next one? The next one is Batman from batman.png. And finally, we got Wonder Woman from wonder-woman.jpg. Be careful with the extensions. Some images are PNG, others are JPEG, right? So look after all these details. Right, so how do we display now free images? You know how to do that already. Image, src, image, alt, title, Superman. Right? Actually, this is a nice trick in Visual Studio. We can duplicate lines easily. If you are a Mac user, you can hold Option-Shift down, you see, and the line gets duplicated. If not, you can simply select it, copy, and then paste it underneath, right? Whatever works better for you. So we got Superman, we got Batman, and we got Wonder Woman, right? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, right? So by doing that, hopefully, now, as you can see, we got our free images on the screen. So imagine that we are building a professional app, and then our investors suggest to display the name of the hero, because for some users, they may not know who this guy is. So they ask to add the name of the hero underneath, right? So no problem at all. Let's display Superman. And then let's put Batman, right? And then let's put the Wonder Woman, right? Easy. It works, right? But then the investors, they are not happy yet, and they want to change the size of the text. They want to make it a bit smaller. No problem at all. Let's change from H1 to H2. H1, H2, right? H1, H2. It works, right? So we can deal with that. But obviously, if we have a database of 500 heroes, it will be a bit complicated from a scalability point of view to keep changing silly things because of our investors are never happy with our product, right? Because of that, thanks to React, we can encapsulate the logic of a hero into a new component. So look at what we can do. We can create a new function, hero. As part of that function, we can just return the details of the hero. So for example, look, what happened if now I invoke the hero component 3 times? Why Superman gets displayed 3 times?
Because the code doesn't change.
Correct. Every time we call hero, we execute this code here. At the moment, unfortunately, our hero component is hard coding Superman, right? So it gets displayed 3 times. So now, this is the very last principle we learned today. How do we communicate DC Comics and hero? How do we say, yes, please display a hero, but the name of the hero will be Superman. And now the name of the hero will be Batman. And now the name of the hero will be Wonder Woman. How do we do that? It's very easy. In React, say it again?
Pass a variable into the function here,
That's,
right?
yeah, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct. We can pass a property here. We can pass variables. For example, the name. Name, Superman. Name, Batman. Name equals Wonder Woman. Can we use single quotes or double quotes? What do you think? Either, correct. In JavaScript, both single and double quotes are supported. Up to you. I prefer single quotes because they are simpler, visually speaking. But hey, up to you. So wait a minute. Why, if now the name is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, that's still wrong? What's going on? Look.
You haven't changed the function.
Correct. That's
Change the
correct.
variable.
You are right. You are absolutely right. So the hero component is still hard coding. So even though it's receiving the correct hero, it's ignoring that information. So how do we link both components? We can pass a variable here inside of the parentheses. You can call the variable however you want. Generally speaking, the React community call it props. But you can rename it if you want, that's fine. And then in here, we can refer with curly braces. Remember, the curly braces are a vital thing in React. We can do props.name. So after doing this, look now, Superman, oh, the image is wrong, but at least the name of the hero now is dynamic. You see? And then you tell me, how can we dynamically display a different image? What do we need to do?
Put props.name for source, props.name for alt.
Props.name for all. Okay, that's a good point. So the alt for blind people is still wrong, right? It points to Superman. So let's put props.name. But now let's focus on the image. At the moment, the image is hard-coded to Superman. So what do we need to do in order to get a dynamic image every time? Can we pass a new property here called image, for example? Right? And because we already imported the image of Superman, then we can put it here, right? Same for Batman, image Batman. And of course, same for Wonder Woman. Still wrong. Why still wrong? What's missing?
Props.image.
Correct. Look, in here, we are still hard coding to Superman. But if we replace Superman with props.image, here we go. Now it works fine, right? That's the way we create dynamic components in React. Remember, you create a component, that component will receive a list of props, and then we can pass these props in HTML like that. Very final question, guys. What if our investors want to add the powers of each hero? You'll tell me. I'm not going to do that, I promise. So how do we pass a list of powers?
Create a new tag, powers.
Yes, correct. Powers equals whatever, right? So tell me, Superman powers. Strong, sexy, flies, I don't know. And then Batman, powers.
Nothing.
Nothing,
Nada.
nothing, really. Come on. He's rich at least, right?
He's loyal.
He's loyal.
He's loyal to Batman.
He's loyal to Batman. No, this is Batman.
Oh.
He's
No,
loyal
Robin.
to Robin, right? Okay, whatever. And finally, Wonder Woman, powers of Wonder Woman.
Strength.
What?
She's got strength, right?
Strength, smart, yeah, whatever, right? Cool. And then, at the moment, we are not obviously displaying the powers. But how do we now display the powers? What do we need to do? Say it again? Someone? Correct. We need to add a new div, a new element, props.powers, right? So now, look, Superman, strong, sexy, flies. Batman, rich, loyal, Wonder Woman, whatever, right? So that's the way we can easily extend our component. So one more thing, this line, as you can see, is a bit long, it's a bit hard to read, right? Lots of things here. So we can have one attribute on each line. That will hopefully help to read what are the properties of each hero. Don't you think? Right? That's a bit more readable, hopefully. One property on each line. It's just syntax sugar. It makes everything a bit more readable, right? Cool. And of course now, because everything is centralized into the hero component, if we want to change the size of the hero, we can change it just once, and that's it. You see, the changes will get applied everywhere, right? So if we want to change to a smaller text, right? That's it. We change it once, it gets applied everywhere. Is there any question, guys? Right? So I think we can leave it here. That was pretty much the introduction to React. Just one more thing, 2 minutes, I promise. Before the start of the session, I explained that React is essentially JavaScript, right? That's a JavaScript function. So how do we learn JavaScript? Here in Codity, we have created an online free tool to learn JavaScript. FYI, in case you want to get better with your JavaScript skills. Some of you already know that tool. If not, I'll show you in literally 2 minutes. So if you go to codity.com, you will see that you can click on the play button on top. This is completely free. And then after sign up, I'll show you. So after signing up, essentially, you can start training JavaScript. So you'll see a training button here, and then you can train your JavaScript skills across several topics, right? So we can play different challenges, so we can see how to create functions, how to return messages, how to construct objects, all these things, right? And after we do this kind of training, you will get a score, as I will show you in a minute, and that score will tell you how good you are with JavaScript across 3 levels of difficulty, right? Every other week here, we did that yesterday, that will happen in 2 weeks' time, we do a coding challenge where we can test our abilities against others. So for example, this is what happened yesterday, where some of the guys play a JavaScript challenge, right? And then we can even compare our code side by side. So this is a very nice way, in our opinion, to learn JavaScript. And also, if you are looking to get a job, or if you want to code professionally, right? This is what startups we work with are looking for. So here we got the ranks with all the players in the platform, right? You can, this guy is the guy at the bottom, right, top one. And here the companies, they see the progress. So whenever companies, digital agencies, startup, they look for talent, they come to us, and then we can show them who are the best players, right? And then we can easily prove why these guys are good, right? So this guy is the top one in the rank because he's won too many challenges. You can see the score, how good he is according to different metrics, all these things, right? So this is just to wrap up this session. Feel free to join, it's completely free. Keep doing the training. We have lots of videos, lots of material to help you to improve coding. If you want to code professionally, also FYI, here we run a bootcamp where we help you to code to break into the market, right? The majority of the guys who join the bootcamp end up getting a job. So if anyone is interested, next bootcamp runs on the 1st of April. We got 4 places left. So places get sold out very quickly because we don't make any business, right? We are just trying to help people to break into the market. So that was pretty much it, guys. Again, if anyone is interested to join, go to codery.com. You can book your place if you want to join the bootcamp, or click on play if you just want to train with your JavaScript skills. So is there any question? No? Okay, so now at least I will be here for a while if you want to catch up about coding, you know, football, fashion, whatever. I'll be more than happy to spend some time. There are some drinks in the corner. So thank you very much, guys. I'm looking forward to see you in the next meetup. Thank you, guys.